Okay, so what I'm going to, by the way, okay, I see the clock, 5 minutes. I'm going to finish before that. I want to honor your time as much as I can. So here's what I'm going to be doing with you. I have a number of presentations that I do. This is one of the few that I constantly update with references. Because Islam is clearly in the news and not stopping, I have found that I need to do this. I have to do this because there is so much scratch and sniff, touchy-feely, light a candle, sing the Coca-Cola theme song kind of garbage going on out there that it's insulting. I am called Murtad, M-U-R-T-A-D. Murtad is a convert from Islam to Christianity. As such, and because I didn't get saved until I was almost in college, I discovered that there was tons of misinformation about Islam and stuff that you hear in the news. And if you constantly say a lie over and over, eventually people begin to believe it. And so this, I call it any number of things just to get people's attention. Jihad me at hello, the Alleluia movement. I pick those things on purpose. And it may sound harsh, but there are parts of truth that have to be harsh. And I'm going to suspect, when I laid it out to Pastor, I said I was going to do this, I'm going to suspect that you have suspected some of these things as well. They're necessary. As a Christian, as an American citizen, these things are necessary. So what I want to do is I'm going to give you 10 simple points. And in those 10 simple points, at any moment, if there's something you want to ask, just wave your hand. And I will repeat what you said so that everybody can hear it. But it is much better if you participate. It's much better if there's follow-up, okay? So I begin with number 1 of the 10. These are things that are misunderstandings about Islam. In 1,500 years of Islamic history, Islam has never coexisted in any country as a minority peacefully or with any form of religious liberty when they are the majority. When I first started doing this, there were 36 countries that called themselves Islamic Republics. There are now 52. Now, how many countries are there around the world? Well, about 200 in the UN, which is a useless organization. But of the UN, they're not counting islands. So when you count islands and separate republics, we're talking around 250. So a full fifth of countries in this world are Islamic republics, which means, number 2, something you have to know. Islam is dictated by, anchored to, the Quran. Now, if you've got a smartphone, you can get a free copy of the Quran. But if it's an Islamic republic, it operates with something more than just the Quran. It operates with something called the Hadith, Hadith. Go to Amazon, go to eBay, you can find the Hadith. Al-Bukhari's Hadith, Al-Muslim's Hadith, it's about 9 volumes, it's about that thick. Now, if the Quran is supposedly, every word of the Quran is supposed to be from the mouth of Allah. The Hadith is a collection of sayings and examples of Muhammad that countries establish what we would call their constitutions on. And they differ. They differ, and we'll come back to that in a second. And because they differ, the one common denominator we have, I know this makes me sound like a war hawk, and I'm not. But the one constant we have Islam has constantly been at war, either with each other or with a common enemy. When it comes to a common enemy, there are three. Right after Muhammad dies, there's something called the Battle of Badr. It was the fight of the young, nascent Muslims. Then Saladin and the Crusades. That's what I wrote my dissertation on. And then, February 23rd, 1998, when Osama bin Mohammed bin Laden, Fazlur Rahman, they signed a fatwa, a declaration of war, F-A-T-W-A. And when they signed the fatwa, it became unbelievably important because in 1,500 years of Islamic history, there's only been 3 periods of time when all forms of Islam, we would use the word sect, but the Islamic term is gulat, G-H-U-L-A-T. Gulat meaning Sunni, Shia, Sufi, Alawite, Druze, all of them agreed and signed a public declaration of war. Now, of those 3 times, Christianity has stopped Islam twice. The first was done by Charlemagne's granddaddy. You should study it. It's such a great thing. His name was Charles Martel. Charlemagne, Charles the Great. Charles Martel was known as the Hammer. Charles Martel, in 732, stopped the Muslim onslaught. Islam was expanding so quickly. They'd gone through Africa. They were coming up into Western Europe. He stops them in 732 in a place called the Battle of Tours. T-O-U-R-S. It's the reason, anybody here Italian? If you're Italian, okay? Anybody here Sicilian? Okay, thank you. The difference is massive. Muslims, the Moors, which were African Muslims, got to Sicily, which is why Sicilians are always darker than the Italians. The Italians can be blonde and, pretty. They say the Sicilians are not. I think the Sicilians are very beautiful. I'm Turkish. I don't even fit in either one of those groups. But I tell you this because here's what he did. Charles Martel grabbed an entire contingency of Muslims, slaughtered them all except for 2, made the 2 dig a hole, dump the bodies in it, and then Martel dumped slaughtered pigs on top of the bodies. Islam teaches that you cannot go to paradise if you've been touched by the pig. He then took those 2 and he said, go back and tell your leaders what we have done here. And they surrendered. The second one, if you watch the History Channel, a guy by the name of Blackjack Pershing. Blackjack Pershing was a brilliant strategist during World War I, which is when my country fell. The Ottoman Empire was destroyed, thankfully. But here's what Pershing did. Pershing spread a rumor that our soldiers were dipping our bullets in pig's blood. And we won. Now, I tell you that simply because I'm not a patient man. And this past weekend, specifically on Friday and on Saturday, yesterday, in England, the Muslims burned buildings. The government has surrendered and said if you say anything against, anything in public on Facebook or whatever, you will go to jail. And they surrendered, thinking that this is going to be a good thing. There is a thing, number 3, that Muslims believe called the conquest. We will bring about the end of the world when people are either converted or conquered. And the way they do this publicly, please note, those of you who travel to Europe, is Muslims love to buy churches and turn them into mosques. If you want the greatest example of this, it's in Istanbul, my homeland, Hagia Sophia. Now, having said all that, anybody got any questions so far? You've got the Quran, 114 chapters, about 6,000 verses. And then you have the Hadith. Hadith is about 9 volumes. It's about this wide, this big. When I'm teaching my classes, it's always right behind me. I have it there so that I can use it if I need to. And that Islam is not monolithic. That is, they don't speak with one voice. That's why they had to have a fatwa. If you read the fatwa, look it up, February 23rd, 1998, written supposedly by Osama bin Mohammed bin Laden, it says, for the last 80 years, they're talking about World War I. It was the last time that the Muslims fought together as people against Iran and Iraq. Those of us who lived in the 80s and who remember the 80s, Iran and Iraq fighting each other. I'll come back to that if we have time. Are y'all ready? Yes. Let's do the next one, number 4. When some idiot says, well, you know, this is a fight between Ishmael and Isaac. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard somebody say. Because it's a genetic argument. It's a genetic argument. They're saying that the Muslims are sons of Ishmael and that the Jews are sons of Isaac. That's a lie. The genetic argument doesn't work. For instance, there are 3 types of Muslim. There's more than 3, but there are 3 majors. Arab, Persian, Turk. The Persian is Shiite, more light-skinned. The Arab, multiple colors. I am a Mongol. I am more of a descendant from Genghis Khan and Kublai Khan than I am from Muhammad. And we're called Mongols. And I tell you this because I have Muslims to this day who will go, you are a Turk. They will spit at my feet. Doesn't bother me, doesn't offend me. Words don't offend, actions don't offend. Truth matters. And so when somebody does this, it doesn't hurt my feelings. However, what does anger me is when somebody, and it's usually in the press, that says, so let's just see if we understand all this. You were a Muslim, yeah, and now you're a Christian, yep. You switched? When did you switch? Yeah, I didn't switch. I got saved. If you say I switched, that's a lie. Because saying I switched is like saying I went from worshiping God in Arabic to worshiping God in English, or worshiping God with one holy book to another holy book, or another set of holy books. That's not true. I went from worshiping a false, dead idol whose name is Allah to knowing the only true, living, redeeming Lord. I do not hesitate on saying that. There's only one name under heaven by which man can be saved. There's only one throne, and he doesn't share. At the name of Jesus, every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. I am not a religious person. I'm saved. I'm a born-again, blood-bought believer in Jesus. I'm not religious. I was religious when I was a Muslim. Brings me to the next point. Religion and Christianity have nothing to do with each other. Religion is a set of rules and rituals and things that you say and do to get your God or gods to love you or to quit hating. Everything Jesus Christ did destroyed that. And I'll come back again if we have any more time or you want me to elaborate more on that. But I'm not religious. Everybody's religious. And you know that I teach world religions. I teach all the holy books. I make my students read them. Right now, this week, they're reading the Rig Veda of Hinduism, which is like reading lyrics from a Grateful Dead song. It's so crazy. But I'm making them read it because if we want them to accept our Bible, why don't we know anything about their books? And I'll come back to the issue of the Quran. You can get a Quran on your phone, but it's harder to give a Muslim a Bible. As a matter of fact, he won't accept it. If he comes up to you and he's talking to you, and you say, hey, I'd like to give you a Bible, he will put his hands behind his back like this, because he's not allowed to accept it. I have the loophole. Y'all ready? I use Socratic method. It's what I live for. I am an Aristotelian, chocolate-covered Thomist. I absolutely adore asking questions. That's why I know the questions of every book of the Bible. I love questions. And I will begin peppering them with questions. Why are you wearing that hat? What are the holy days that you follow? I'm just curious. Curiosity for me is a driving force because I didn't have Awana. I didn't have Sunday school. I didn't have vacation Bible school. I did a church camp 2 weeks after surgery this summer. I will always do church camps, always, because I learned at church camp. I got saved at 18, went to church camp as a counselor, and didn't know where anything was in my Bible. I needed tabs for somebody to explain to me and show me. So I'm that kid who raised his hand and asked questions. And I do this constantly. Now, watch. You pepper them with questions, and then you say something like this. How do I get a Quran? See, that is a good work for them. To give you a Quran is supposedly a good work. Surah 23, verses 101 and 102 of the Quran, it's a good work. So they will rush to get you a Quran. Just be ready. When they bring it to you, accept it, say thank you so much, and then say, I want to give you my book. I will read yours. Will you read mine? They have to accept it. They have to accept it. Bam! An open Bible and an open mind will make a Baptist every time. Now, but their stories are like ours. When I got saved and I started reading through my Bible, which, by the way, somebody really needs to explain that to the young guys like me. I started at Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus almost killed me. I was, what? But when I got to Genesis, I discovered that I had been lied to. There's a lot of stories from the Bible that are in the Quran. Well, it's got to be the same God, right? Allah's Jehovah. They've got Nuh, we've got Noah. They've got Isa, we've got Jesus. They got Abraham, we've got Abraham. I am about to tell you the great secret of Islam. For those of you who are raised in the church, once you hear this, you'll never be able to unhear this. If you want to know why Islam sounds like us, it's because Muhammad and Joseph Smith had the same demon. Islam is nothing other than medieval Mormonism. Everything that Joseph Smith did in the 1800s, 1830s, 1840s, Muhammad did in the 6th century. For instance, both of them take the stories they like, change the details they don't like, republish it and say they're correcting it. It's called the redaction. And they believe that theirs is better. You remember the commercials? It used to be, you've got the Old Testament, you got the New Testament, and you have the final testament. Again, teaching my students, I will fail a student if he hides from a Jehovah's Witness or if he hides from a Mormon at his door. I will fail you. They're coming to your door. It's like Halloween. You don't know how Christians fight over Halloween and I don't know, we should celebrate. They're coming to your door. It's the one day of the year you can give out gospel tracts and they got to take them with the candy. I am all about it. But when the Mormon comes to the door, here's what I do. Come on in. You want some coffee? They can't have coffee, so that's one, right? Hello, Elder Bob. Hello, Elder Steve. Nice to meet you. Well, we would like to share something with you. Okay, what are you going to share? Here's an interesting thing. This is the Book of Mormon. We want to see if it gives you a burning in your soul, right? They always talk about the burning in your heart. And that's when I go, I am so glad you're here. Because last night, at the foot of my bed, Joseph Smith appeared to me in a vision. And he was wearing lipstick and a frock. You can't say that. Why? Joseph Smith was not a cross-dresser. Well, in my vision, he did. And he told me it's my job to correct the mistakes in the Book of Mormon. Well, you can't do that. Why? Because there are no mistakes in the Book of Mormon. There's no mistakes in the Bible. Well, we're correcting the mistakes. Yeah, I'm correcting yours. It's the same argument that Muslims use. Muhammad, on his 40th birthday, he's in a cave. He falls on the ground, roars like a camel, foams at the mouth, and supposedly the angel, Jibreel, appears to him and tells him that all religion is dead and that he, Muhammad, is the final prophet. What happened with Joseph Smith? A vision. They both have golden tablets. They both buried the golden tablets. Nobody else ever saw them. Both heard a voice nobody else heard. They take the stories, and I'll give you one real quick, and we'll move on. I'm reading my Bible, and I get to Genesis 21 and 22. And you know the story. It's in the Quran, too, by the way. Abraham, takes his son to the top of Mount Moriah, lays his son on the altar, told by God to sacrifice his child, raises the sword, right hand over left, brings it down. At the last minute, Allah prepares a ram in the thicket and saves the life of Ishmael. See what he did? Took the story and flipped it. You want to know why they call themselves the sons of Ishmael? Because when Muhammad first started preaching his message, they chased him out of town. He went to Medina. Nobody wanted to hear that all the other gods were fake gods, especially from the guy whose family was supposed to guard the Kaaba. But when he gets to Medina, he comes up with a new message. We, the Muslims, are sons of Ishmael. And if you're sons of the older child, you get 2/3 of the inheritance. And it became a land deal. And it's why Muhammad never went to Jerusalem, but they're fighting for it. Because they think they deserve it as children of the older child. Again, it's a silly genetic argument, just like the Mormons. Both Muslims and Mormons have women as sexual slaves for eternity. Anybody who understands Mormonism, studies it, what is a woman's greatest hope in eternity? Oh, y'all need to watch Discovery Channel. Sister wives, come on now. The greatest hope that a woman has in Mormonism is to be a celestial bride, to be eternally pregnant on your own planet. Having seen 2 of those things, good luck. What does the martyr get in Islam? The shaheed, right? He becomes a holy. He becomes a holy warrior, mujahideen. What does he get if he dies in an act of jihad? 72 perpetual virgins serving him on couches and pomegranates. Here's a question nobody ever asks. What does a woman martyr get? It's a fair question. They strap bombs to themselves all the time. What does the woman martyr get? Because if you tell a woman, any woman, that if you die for Allah, that waiting for you in heaven are 72 virgin men waiting to, that's not heaven to a woman. That's high school to a woman. That's she's going to be chaste for the entire heaven. Just come to me, dance with me. Yeah. Both of them believe they replace Israel. Neither of them recognize Israel and refuse to, because if they recognize Israel, they have to deny their own genetic fallacy. Allah is not Jehovah. Well, they got the same name and it's a single monotheistic God. No, it's not name, it's nature. Zoroastrian has one God. And Zoroastrianism, which was what was in Iran and Iraq prior to Muhammad, 1,000 years before Muhammad, 500 BC, the name of their God is Ahura Mazda. Ahura Mazda, for those of us, one of the classes I teach is cinematic theology. And it's all the mythologies, like the Marvel universe is Hinduism. Because you have demigods, you have, higher. What are the biggest gods in Marvel? What are the biggest superheroes? Iron Man, Thor, Captain America. Nobody ever says, help me, Hawkeye. It's just not going to happen because those are considered lesser or demiurges. And in Zoroastrianism, Ahura Mazda has two sides, two faces. Batman, Harvey Dent, always flipping the coin. Ahura Mazda is constantly fighting between doing good or bad. He's schizophrenic. It's not the name. It's the nature, and not one word in the Quran describes a God that loves you. As a matter of fact, the Quran teaches that Allah will send to hell who he wills. And thus, you got a pretty strong case that Allah is not this. I've never met one Muslim, never met one Muslim who's ever said that Allah of the Quran and Jehovah God of the Bible are the same God. All right, I'm going to keep going because we got to go fast. Jesus Christ of the Bible is not Isa of the Quran. He's not even the final prophet. He's the next to last prophet. And the Quran teaches that Jesus, Isa, foretold the coming of Muhammad. 63rd chapter of the Quran, Surah. By the way, same thing in Mormonism. They have Jesus, both of them, by the way, both Mormonism and Islam, have Jesus returning at the wrong place for the wrong reason. In Mormonism, he's walking around Detroit, Missouri, too. In Islam, he returns. Oh, it's such a long story. I'm trying to get you out of here on time. Next one. Islam, present day, started as a fight between two women. Muhammad didn't know when he was going to die. He didn't leave any marching orders. And he didn't have a son that lived. Because he didn't have a son that lived, there was a fight who's going to take over Islam. It was a fight between two sides. Side number one, the daughter of Muhammad's best friend, Abu Bakr. As a matter of fact, this daughter was Muhammad's last wife. Oh, I'm enjoying telling you this because it always drives people insane. Her name, Aisha. Aisha married the Prophet when he was 50, and she was 6. And she says in the Hadith that the Prophet married me when I was 6, but did not consummate our marriage until I was 9, which makes him 53 with a 9-year-old girl. That's a pedophile. Oh, how dare you? Okay. What would you call a 53-year-old who's with a 9-year-old? Aisha feverishly, ferociously defended Muhammad. And she said, my daddy should be the leader, Abu Bakr. Muhammad did have a daughter. Her name was Fatima. And Fatima married Ali. And she said, I am the daughter of the Prophet who died. And my husband and I have children who are blood related to Muhammad. So you had two fights, Fatima and Aisha. Aisha said, we are followers of the way, Sunnah, the Sunni Muslims, about 90%. The followers of Ali, Shiite, and they're about 8%. They split, and they fought, and they have fought each other ever since. Smartest man in modern military history is a man by the name of Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill, even before he became prime minister, was Lord of the Admiralty in World War I. It was Winston Churchill who divided Iran and Iraq, and he purposefully put a Sunni government over top of a Shiite people. and they fought ever since. You remember when Saddam Hussein was alive and he would bomb mosques, and they would go, why is he bombing mosques? That doesn't make any sense. He's a Muslim. He doesn't think those are mosques. Here's a next difference you need to know about Islam. They're not like us, okay? We are Liberty Church. I happen to be Baptist, but I have also been a member of the Calvary Chapels, West Coast, musically inclined. I love Calvary Chapel people. Chuck Smith was like a hero to me. And those are Christians. You hear me say it. Country churches, I don't worship that way, but they're brothers and sisters in Christ in those little country churches. Nazarene, same. I have more in common with Pentecostal, Charismatic, Church of God in Christ, Nazarene, holiness. I am more that way than I am Presbyterian. Calvinists are going to be in heaven. They're just not going to be happy. They're just never happy. They're brothers. We may not get along, but they're brothers. Not in Islam. Sunni do not believe Shiite are true Muslims. They're going to hell. Shiite do not believe Sunni are true Muslims. Neither of them believe the Sufi are true Muslims. Do you know who the Sufi are? S-U-F-I? Sufi came out of Turkey, my country. They are the they are the Kenneth Copelands of the Islamic world. They're very mystical. The whirling dervish. We start dancing, you spin faster, 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 faster. And at the last minute, before you lose consciousness, you believe that your mind comes into union with Allah. We also, I say we, but I've got Sufi in my family, invented the hookah, the shisha, the hashish pipe, the bong. You're welcome. And I have in my office my mom's bong from, where they sit there and they smoke the pipe. Because they believe, again, when their mind comes into union with Allah, Sunni and Shia, they reject them. So that's why they're going to fight each other. That's why I think the thing to do now is make them fight each other. All right. Let's talk about holy war versus just war. I was, and you know where you were, on September 11th. I was teaching at Criswell College in Dallas. And first plane goes in, somebody comes running into my classroom. Hey, somebody just flew a plane into the World Trade Center. I didn't even know what the World Trade Center was. I knew it because they had at one time tried to bomb it in 93, but I didn't know much about it. Sounds like a small plane issue. What was it, 20-some minutes later? Second plane comes through. My phone rings. It's my brother. Emir, my youngest brother, is the president of Truett McConnell University in Cleveland, Georgia. At the time, he was a teacher at the seminary. And he calls and he says, did you hear a second plane went into the towers? Yeah, this is jihad. There are protocols of jihad that nobody talks about. Well, I mean, there are guys that talk about them. They just get made fun of all the time. Robert Spencer, Ravi Zacharias, before he died, a lot of these guys, they studied the difference between just war and holy war. There's a massive difference, and it's literally taking place as we speak. What they discovered yesterday was that Hamas wanted to dig up the British graveyard of all the soldiers that are buried there in Israel, take the bones and hold them captive. Why? Because they don't fight a just war. They fight holy war. Bellum sacrum versus bellum justum. Here's some of the things that I'll just drop and you can enjoy them later. Muhammad taught that you cannot be a citizen of a country against which you're fighting a jihad. You want to see why I got in a lot of fights? I said this on KCBI in Dallas on the radio. I'll say it again. Muhammad said you cannot be a citizen of a country against which you are fighting a jihad. Why? Because if they went to war with France, the first thing France should do is get all the Muslim citizens, round them up, put them in a camp. But it is law, Islamic law, that you cannot be a citizen. That, they can fund it, but they can't fight it. Yeah? What should we have done after 9/11? Every one of the 19 bombers was here on a student visa or a work visa. If we really cared about stopping this, we should have withdrawn every student visa and every work visa of every Muslim living in America. Fact. Of course, that's I don't play well with others. They were furious. They marched on me. They protested. That's how Pastor and I was at a Bailey Smith conference, and they were marching outside, and Paul Blair comes up and goes, "I'm Paul Blair." I go, "I know who you are. You're right, Chicago Bears." And he goes, "Well, I just want you to know he was encouraging me." And I was like, "Really? Thank you. That's very kind of you." But not everybody, guys run from me. When I was at First Baptist Church of Springdale, Arkansas, the Muslims came forward during the invitation to yell with the Quran. The imam was leading them down. You should have seen the choir behind me. They freaked. By the way, if that ever happens in church, I can tell you exactly what to do. If you ever suspect that Muslims are there to argue and fight, number one, if they ever threaten, move to the side, put your hands behind your back, stand there. That's what I did when they did. They come down, they've never been in church. They don't know how to act in church. They came down, they're yelling, and I just stood there. What do you want? They turned around and went back. But secondly, here's the protocol of jihad. What did the guys on the plane do before they flew into the buildings? Yeah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. They did wudu, the cleansing, and then they did a prayer. You cannot touch the unbeliever. So, when I'm in a church and we suspect that there are Muslims there, I tell the guy, the music guy, we're going to sing a welcome song. And I want y'all, especially the deacons and the security guys, I want you to, if you find them, shake their hand and make them uncomfortable, because now they're unclean. Let's keep going. They don't have sacred spaces, and they don't have sacred times. We can't do anything during Ramadan. Really? You ever heard of the Yom Kippur War? 1973. Sacred spaces. Well, we can't take over the mosques. What do you think they did in Bethlehem, the Church of Nativity? They defecated on the altar, thinking that it would make it unclean. So, there are things in Islam that are taught. About the second plane, the reason my brother knew, every act of jihad must be public. Remember, people were saying, well, I hope we can find out who did this. If it was jihad, they would find out quickly. Because they always, you see them now, they make videos. I'm so proud of my son, who is now, he's gone from being a shaheed to a muj, the holy warrior. He's a mujahideen, and he's declared himself. He's declared himself as a martyr. So, they have to declare themselves. Going back to 9/11, you all remember that winter, we were terrified of anthrax. We thought that they were putting stuff in envelopes. Is this the Muslims? Nope. They will never do that. It has to be an act done publicly. That's why it's important to watch the videos. It's important to watch what they're putting in the news. It's important to see what they're saying. Are there terrorists on both sides? Of course. Hamas is born out of the Intifada, right? The Palestinian Authority. Well, is there a Shiite terrorist group? Yeah, Hezbollah. Well, you call them terrorists. Yes. Yes. Because they're willing to kill in the name of Allah. Well, Christians did that in the Crusades. Yeah, but we don't do that now. Well, what do you think about the Crusaders? I think they were wrong. You don't kill in the name of Jesus. You don't offer salvation to somebody who dies defending Christ, or in their case, defending Jerusalem. That's silly. Well, what about guys who bomb abortion clinics? Again, you don't do that. There's nothing to be gained by doing that. You fight, you can argue, but you don't kill in the name of Christ. As a matter of fact, the last act of cosmic violence was the cross. All right, we've got just a few seconds. I want to end it in here a little bit, but anybody have any questions? I threw out a whole bunch of stuff at you. Muhammad, Allah. Oh, yes, please. We fight. Look, I am a personal pacifist. I'm an Anabaptist, right? Which means I'm not going to defend myself. You break into my house, I will shoot you in front of my kids and kick the body. I will defend others. We defend ourselves. Again, I wish I wouldn't have lost all those guns I owned in the lake. What a horrible thing. I wish I could find them. But I believe in defending our country. I believe in defending America. America is the last shot we got. Britain falling, France surrendered. We got nothing left. America is the last vestige of freedom of speech. And if they try to take that away, we don't got a lot of hope. I don't think. I'm actually very optimistic about our country right now. Not about our government. See the difference between being a liberal and being a conservative. As a conservative, I don't trust my government, but I trust my country. I don't love my government. I love my country. Liberals love the government, hate the country. You step on my flag, I will step on you. Because it symbolizes the last hope of American freedom, the last hope of an exceptionalism. So I will defend us. But I'm not, when I say I'm a personal pacifist, we don't kill in the name of Jesus. Does that make sense? As opposed to I kill in the name of freedom. Any others? Please.
Twin cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, huge Muslim
Yeah.
population. Would that be considered civilization jihad until they...
Yeah, it's actually not just considered, it's when Sharia law is allowed to be the law of the land. Ann Arbor, Michigan. Sharia law is the law of the land. And the reason, what they did was they used the Jewish courts, the kosher courts, as an example. The problem is in the Jewish courts, they subsume, they rule on religious things. In Islam, they rule on everything. Honor killings. That's why they kill their daughters. The fathers will kill their daughters in America. Okay. You guys have been very patient with me. Oh, please. Yes, sir. Please. Yeah. Well, the genetic fallacy is this. I am Turkish, 100% Turk. I've done all the 23andMe's, it's Turkish. But I've got like 1% Ashkenazi Jew. The genetic argument, both in Mormonism and in Islam, is that we are direct descendants of Ishmael, which is why we, as direct descendants of Ishmael, deserve the land, including Israel. Not just including, predicated on Israel. The genetic fallacy is we are such a mixed people. Everybody's mixed. Everybody. I do it with my students all the time, and I think I did it here once, maybe the first time I ever spoke here. Anybody here part Native American? Okay. If you don't mind me asking, my sister? Choctaw. Okay. Choctaw and Cree, southern part of Oklahoma. Who else? Cherokee. Yes, please. Cherokee as well. Any others? Please, yes. Comanche, along with the Apache. Those are the most fierce warriors. I always begin a class just to start a good fight, and I will say, there is no such thing as a Native American. And then I pause. Unless you think the Garden of Eden was here. They got here first. And then we beat them. Why? Because gun beats spear. And every piece of land, I'm so tired of you white people always being attacked. Every piece of land on this planet has had slaves and has been slaveholders. Every one of them. And before again, I said the most fierce people, the Apache and the Comanche scalped the Cree and the Cherokee for the land. And in the wide plains, they all have, number one, they all have stories of coming here. And number two, the noble savage myth by Jean-Jacques Rousseau? You know, that when we got here, the white men came here with pox-infected blankets, and they were all just happily fishing in streams and getting along. And no, they were scalping each other. It's silly. So that argument, when I say there is no such thing as a Native American, I pause. And you know who gets offended at that? Not those of us who come from this background. You know who gets offended? It's always some white woman who is like 265th Apache, and she says, my name is Running Water. Your name is Alice. Anyways, we're done. You guys are wonderful. Islam is not going away. It's not. They're going to keep coming. And they have every right to build a mosque, and I have every right to stand in front of that mosque and holler, Jesus saves. Thanks for listening.